The business part, if you're struggling in it, will also get better. Even if it's that you have, that you feel like you have so much to do and not enough time. Maybe it's that you're working so much and not re-energizing yourself throughout the day or throughout the week that you're actually not as effective as you could be during the times that you're working.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Are you working more hours but getting less done? You're not alone, and it's not your fault. In this episode, we're joined by productivity expert Marcey Rader to break down sustainable strategies that help entrepreneurs reclaim their workday without burning out. You'll learn how to set boundaries, improve focus, and create healthier work habits so you can work well and play more. So Marcey, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Candy.
I'm excited to have you here too, and this is going to be another great topic to discuss. So many entrepreneurs, they've begun a business thinking they're going to have freedom. They hear people are out on the golf course or, all the things, and yet when they begin their business, often they're working more than when they were just an employee, and they are just feeling overwhelmed. So I would love for you to touch on why does this happen in the first place?
Sure. And I was one of those people. So I've had my business for 12 years. And when I started my business, I was a competitive triathlete and mountain biker and adventure racer. And I thought, I'm going to leave the corporate world and I'm going to have so much more time to train. I'm going to be able to race more. And none of that was true. None of it was true. But I also found that after about a year, I didn't mind that I wasn't racing as much or, doing as much, because what I was getting from doing all the racing, I was actually getting it from having a business and growing it. And that's what was like filling my cup. And so, it's okay to be so into your business that also becomes your thing if it makes you excited to be in it. It's when you are working so much that it feels like it's affecting your relationships, you're not exercising enough, you're not getting enough sleep. That's when you know that you're working too much and you're putting, maybe more hours than you should into that. And recognizing that if you bring those other things up, the social interaction with people, moving more, getting enough sleep, the business part, if you're struggling in it, will also get better. Even if it's that you have, that you feel like you have so much to do and not enough time. Maybe it's that you're working so much and not re-energizing yourself throughout the day or throughout the week that you're actually not as effective as you could be during the times that you're working.
It's so true. Same thing. I was working all the time. I started my business. I didn't even intend to be a business owner, and someone asked me to help them. And that was in 2002. And, here we are all these years later. And yes, I was that person too, and realized I need to be able to make a change in my own business too. I need to have the business be able to run without me if something happens to me, or I have aging parents and my mother-in-law, and they're in different states. And if I get called away, all these different things were just on my mind. Like, what happens if, and I was like, okay, I need to make a change. So I've been implementing changes in my own business too, and know there are so many entrepreneurs out there that need to hear this message. So I'm so glad, that you're here to talk about it today. So I would love for you to even touch on, setting realistic boundaries, because as entrepreneurs, we often feel like we have to satisfy the customer or we have to do all of these different things. And sometimes it's really hard to set those boundaries. So can you touch on maybe what entrepreneurs can do if they're struggling in this area?
Yes. And I will give a specific example from an accountant that I worked with. And one thing that entrepreneurs feel like, or business owners feel like they need to do all the time, is react immediately to emails and text messages. And I'm going to lose the client, or I want to keep the client. I want them to know that they're number one and they're the most important. But have you ever thought that you could be giving the wrong idea, the exact opposite message to them? And here's my example. I had an accountant that would respond immediately all the time. And I actually started to think, does this guy have enough business that, I mean, he's able to respond immediately all the time? Like, is he just sitting in front of his computer, just waiting for people to email him? And when he would do this during tax season, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't want him distracted when he's doing my taxes, you know? And I even said, like, please don't feel like you need to respond immediately. And then I actually went a step further because he was my friend. And I said, it's giving me the wrong message that you are responding immediately. And it also can sometimes come off as desperate too. When I get emails like at night at like 8 o'clock or something from somebody I'm working with, depending on the relationship or, you know, the time zone, things like that. But sometimes I'm like, ugh, you know, either they don't have good guardrails or it can just feel a little desperate. And so your reactivity isn't always just being responsive. You know, you want to be responsive, not reactive. And so first of all, if you do work during traditional off hours, which that's the beauty of being a business owner, right?
Right.
Use that schedule feature in your emails. If you use the Gmail platform, it's so easy. It's built in with the Boomerang extension that you can, if you're working at 8 o'clock at night, send it for the next day. You know, don't put an email in somebody's inbox at night. If you're working on the weekend, schedule it for Monday. If you're using Outlook, it's a little bit more clunky if you're using Outlook on the desktop, but if you're online, you can, it's much easier to schedule those messages. But what it also does is it keeps the conversation from happening. So if you're working on a Saturday or 8 o'clock at night, you don't want them to respond to you, right? And maybe they don't have good email habits either. And so they respond to you. And then you're like, oh, now I need to respond. And it becomes this catch up. And so by scheduling those messages, you stop that conversation and you're able to just get through what you need to get through at night. So starting with your emails and texts, and because you can even schedule your text messages now too. So really thinking about what kind of hours you want to keep, scheduling your messages, and how it actually may be coming across. And one more thing about the email. We actually have an email manifesto on our site, helloraderco.com/email-manifesto. And every new client gets this link. And it says how we respond to emails, when to expect them by, that we don't send acknowledgments like got it, okay, we don't, thanks. We don't send just acknowledgments like that. And also that we only do email Monday through Thursday. And setting those expectations is key for your clients, because if they know that your typical turnaround is 24 hours, they're not going to hound you about it. But if they're used to you responding within 30 minutes, and then the first time it takes you 7 hours to respond, that's when they're going to be saying, did you get my email? Did you get my email? I never get those kinds of emails because the expectations are set up front and I respond in a timely manner.
Well, and I think too, sometimes people feel, well, I can lose a client, if I don't respond. But often those are the ones that are the most difficult to work with anyway, because they have unreasonable expectations. And so
Yes.
I think sometimes the entrepreneur has to really acknowledge that, yeah, maybe you will lose a client, but is it worth keeping that person if you are like tied to working all these crazy hours and on the nights and weekends that you really shouldn't have to?
Yeah. And Candy, it's hard, especially in the beginning, to say no to a client. But I'm sure everybody listening has done it, where we've taken on somebody that we knew that they were probably going to be challenging. And we did it because we needed the money, or, our pipeline wasn't great, and we have regretted it later. And even after 12 years, I still do it sometimes. And I have someone right now, that I knew he was probably going to require a lot more work than normal. And I was right. And he does. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd love for you to talk about what you call health-powered productivity. So what does that mean, and why is it important for business owners?
So being productive doesn't mean anything if you're not also effective. And, I use the analogy of tying your shoes. You can tie and untie your shoes all day. It makes you busy. It's not productive. You can even be really fast at it, very efficient at tying and untying your shoes, but it doesn't matter, right? Because it's not effective. And so really thinking about effectiveness, but also it doesn't matter how many emails you are answering if you are doing it at dinner with your family and it's affecting your relationships at home. It doesn't matter how many tasks you're knocking off the list if you're losing sleep to do it. It does not matter how many projects you get through if you've sat at your desk all day and not taken a break away from the screen for your eyes, had a meal away from your desk, or just taken a walk for 7 minutes around your neighborhood. So everything that we promote is always with a health focus. And that it, includes making sure you get enough sleep, making sure you're actually eating meals, and not just grabbing, whatever processed food you can put in your mouth while you're, working on your 8th hour, and that you're moving as well. And also the mental component of it.
Well, and once again, I think entrepreneurs think I have so many things I have to do, and I'll exercise later, or I'll, grab a snack, and, it's as long as I'm not starving, I'm fine. We don't really think about our health long term. And if this is something that's supporting our family, or if we have employees who are dependent upon that job, we really need to be thinking long term about the business too. And again, creating it where it can run without us, and we're not the only ones that are having to do all these things, because if something happens, we have people depending on us, right? And so I think we need to really pay attention to that. And I've been just as bad, like, I've worked, and said, it's 3:00 and I haven't had a snack yet, or I haven't exercised much, and so again, I'm making changes myself now to bring those back into focus, because I haven't been as great about it. But I think that's one of the things that we think, we'll get to it, and making that a priority. So how can an entrepreneur really make that a priority then too, to put in the health and wellness, and realize, yes, I still have all these things I need to do. How do I balance that?
Yeah. It's going to be a challenge to get your mind to think in this way, because our initial instinct is to just work, hamster at the wheel. But even just choosing one habit, maybe it's a screen-free lunch. And I'll give the example of that. If you're used to eating lunch in front of your screen 5 days a week, maybe the goal is more days than not. I take a break away from my desk. And the reason why you want to do that, and why ultimately it makes you more productive in the afternoon, is one, you've been working. Your brains need a break. Just like, if you're a corporate athlete and you're out there on the court, every athlete takes a break. Every athlete. We have halftime, we have timeouts, whatever that is. And so your brain also needs a break. You are not going to solve that problem continuing to look at your inbox. You'll solve it out on your porch, eating your salad or your cottage cheese or whatever you have for lunch today. The other thing is that when we stare at a screen for a long amount of time, we blink less, so our eyes become more dry. We get what's called screen apnea, where we breathe shallow. And this happens, the bigger the screen, the closer it is to our face. We start to breathe shallow. When we breathe shallow, it affects our diaphragm because it doesn't go up and down as much as it should, which affects our digestion. It can also lead to neck and shoulder tension and even headaches. If we are eating in front of a screen, we're also more likely to snack more in the afternoon. And because it's not imprinted on our brain that we've eaten anything. So, oh my gosh, there's so many reasons why to step away from your desk. But if you're just like, I cannot do it. Or you feel like, but I don't want to lose that 20 minutes that I would take to step away from my desk. Well, first of all, you'll get a better quality afternoon if you take that 20 minutes. And also, if you just can't do it, then maybe you start with, for the first 10 minutes of the meal, I turn away from my desk or I sit at my table, and then I can finish it at my desk. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
It's just a start, right? To start putting those habits in place. I think sometimes people feel it's just counterintuitive. Like, well, it's going to take me longer in my day. If I take this 20 minutes out, that means I just have to work 20 minutes later, or maybe longer because now I've kind of stopped that thought process. But like you're saying, often it actually makes you more productive because you've taken that break. Your brain has a little bit of downtime. Your eyes get to focus on something else, and then you can come back to it. So I'd love for you maybe to touch on. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just remember that athlete. There's a reason why there are timeouts and breaks, because they need that quick recharge. And so does your brain.
Well, I was going to say too, with COVID, a lot of people went from office settings where they're all together. So, the entrepreneur had all the staff around, and now they're at home. So it's not as obvious that they're working all the time. Maybe in the office, someone might be like, hey, you need to take a break now. You've been working all day, right? They might be encouraging them. So obviously, now that we're remote, it's easier to just keep on working all the time, So what are some things maybe that you can maybe help the entrepreneur who is working remotely, or maybe a hybrid schedule periodically, to like improve their productivity, right? And be effective, like we talked about, not just be busy, but actually be effective, in that new role.
Yes. Yeah. When people went fully remote, I would get so many messages saying like, I'm only getting 3,000 steps a day. Like, this is terrible, because it's not just the people, coming by your desk and saying, hey, you should take a break. It's that you walked across a parking lot. You had to walk to the other side of the building to go to the bathroom. My bad. I live in an 1,100 square foot house. I mean, I don't have to walk very many steps to go anywhere. So if you are not somebody that, regularly gets up from their desk, I am a huge, huge fan of the timer, and I use it all the time. And for me, I do 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off, because that's what studies have shown are peak productive time. So I'll do a sprint. I call it a work sprint for 50 minutes. And then I take a 10-minute break. And during that 10-minute break, I always do something that is physical. It could even just be like 10 squats. It's something. But another thing you can do is tie a work behavior or some kind of behavior with some kind of trigger. So maybe at lunch, if you don't, you're like, I don't care about eating in front of a screen. Well, maybe the option is for you to just walk around your block. It doesn't even have to be an hour walk, a 20-minute walk. I mean, I have this little loop that takes me 7 minutes. And sometimes that's all I do is 7 minutes. But it's 7 minutes that's reset my posture and it's gotten me outdoors. And so thinking about, or maybe you're listening to this podcast or to some other podcast or some other meeting and it's just listening, maybe getting into the habit of doing that with AirPods in, walking around your neighborhood. I hardly ever am on the phone without also walking. My brother, he paces in his office. He walked 2.5 miles in his little tiny office, and it's not a big office, while talking on the phone to somebody. And I was just like, are you kidding me? That isn't, I mean, it was just, I couldn't believe it. He's like, I just went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But walking pads are becoming very popular now. I have a bike desk that I use. And, it doesn't mean that you use it all the time. I only use my bike desk when I'm watching like webinars or I'm in a meeting, very casual meeting with people. And even then, when I'm talking, I'll stop pedaling. Same thing with like a walking pad. Think about being very intentional about when you use it versus when you don't. You don't want it to be distracting to other people or for yourself, but there could be things where maybe you're just watching and you could use the walking pad for that. But, tying some kind of movement to something that you do.
And I mean, that just shows that you can just fit things in, if you're going to, like I said, if you're going to be on a webinar or something, you can still fit in some type of movement, even when you're watching something on your screen. And so we don't have to just be sitting the whole time. And so once again, it's just reframing things into how we can add some of that movement and be a little bit healthier, because ultimately it's for our best, that we actually do the things, to keep us healthy and active. So I definitely appreciate your sharing those tips too. I would love for you to talk about design days. How can entrepreneurs use this concept to enhance focus and innovation in their weekly routines?
I love design days. So this is a terminology that I came up, but you can call it whatever you want. And for us, it is a day without any meetings, no email or chats. And it's a day to get really focused on maybe a specific project, or, you're want to learn about something new, but you need big blocks of time where you're not interrupted by, meetings or emails. We do them as a team quarterly. And we do them at the end of the quarter, or where we reflect on the previous quarter and plan for the next one, because that reflection piece is really important. And so then we do that team-wise 4 times a year for a full day, sometimes 2 days. I do them also, at least one a month. But I actually go somewhere. I will either, when I'm speaking somewhere, I may stay an extra day and use a time in the hotel. Or later in August, I'm actually going to a cottage that's about an hour drive from me. And I love this little cottage. It's where I wrote my TEDx. It's where I wrote my book. And I know some things that I'm already going to be working on while I'm at this cottage. And it's just, 3 days by myself to do all the things that I'm not able to do as effectively when I'm interrupted with meetings and things all day. And if you think that, even if you are a business owner and you have 10 employees, 20 employees, whatever that is, I have companies with 700 employees that do these quarterly, where almost everyone is off email and chat. And I say almost because, and no meetings, because it's a biotech company. And so some people need to be available because of patient safety, but even they have less interruptions because there's no emails or meetings that day. Abdo, which is an accounting firm, they do a whole week of this twice a year. And they're about 300 people. So, you can do it if you're one person or a team of 5. You can have these design days.
hmm I do the same thing. I have once a month on my calendar that the day is blocked, that it's, I'm not looking at the email. I'm not, recording anything. I'm not chatting with staff. I literally say, like, unless there's, something that you really have to reach me for an emergency, which is pretty slim that would happen, really
Yeah.
don't reach out. And then there's a couple times during the month I might do, a block of time, maybe like 3 hours or something, where it's like, I need to focus, no interruptions during this time, because I have 11 staff too, and they're in 3 different time zones. And so
Mhm.
people could be starting, and I'm on Eastern time. So it could be, earlier in the day, my time, that someone is starting, or
Yeah.
later in the evening, someone is still on, but I do want to have focus time, because otherwise, if you have interruptions, but I also changed how things are where they can't just reach out to me at any time. Like, we have specific times on my calendar that I have like a Q&A, like, and most
Mhm.
of the time it's not urgent, but I also tell them,
Yep.
reach out to your other employees, because, the other staff members, my employees, because they might know the answer too. And actually it's made a big difference as well. And I'm not getting as many questions, because I used to get questions all the time throughout the day and I felt like I got nothing done. Right. And so
Mhm.
making those strategic changes definitely helped my business too. So it's definitely something I recommend too, is whether it's a whole day or a few hours, at least have that strategic block of time where you can really focus.
Yeah. And I block mine out for the whole year.
hmm
Like,
hmm
so when I do my planning, my annual planning on January 1st, I will block out time, the next November, and
hmm
things. So, and that's great that you do that. And especially that you gave those guardrails to your employees and told, ask each other, because what you also did was you empowered your team, because
hmm
sometimes a business owner, if you're answering the questions all the time, it's actually disempowering to
hmm
them.
hmm So true. And that's where I am trying to put where they can make decisions. And I've, given them boundaries too, obviously, but you can help answer the question. You can help solve that problem. Like, you don't have to come to me to say, can I do this? You can make that decision, because once again, what if something were to happen to me? You can't have that customer waiting for an answer. Right. And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm trying to do too, is give them that authority to be able to make decisions and follow through with those decisions and things like that too. So it takes a little bit of time, and some people aren't always as confident, but it's also
Mhm.
giving them the permission to make some mistakes and learn from them.
Yes.
Right. It's
Yes.
probably a whole nother conversation, but I appreciate, like, you're coming and even talking about this, because again, so many entrepreneurs are just working way too much and don't even know how to make any changes. And so I think this will be a great thing for them to listen to and start making those slight little changes, and hopefully, seeing some of the time that they're working in their business being reduced. So great topic. I know we're running to the end of the time we have together today, so I wanted to ask if you have an offer that you would like to extend to our listeners, and also how can they contact you if they want more information?
Sure. My latest book is called Reclaim Your Workday: Sustainable Productivity Strategies for the New World of Work. And every chapter is divided into meetings, email, task management, vacation and time off, and so on. And all of the tips are divided into individual contributor, manager, and C-suite or business owner. And if you go to reclaimyourworkday.com, there is a free go-to guide, it's a resource guide that they can download. You don't even have to buy the book, and they can download that and kind of get an introduction to some of the tips there. And if they want to find me, they can find me through reclaimyourworkday.com, but also at helloraderco.com. And that's spelled HELLORADERCO.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being a guest on my show, Marcey. I really appreciate your being here and having this conversation. And I'm sure listeners have learned a lot just from this little bit of our conversation we had today. So thank you.
Thank you, Candy.
And to the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.